everyone, welcome back or welcome. So many of you have shown a lot of interest around my olive skin tone content, and I've gotten a lot of requests to make videos on how to choose the right shades of makeup for olive skin tones. Now luckily, working as a makeup artist has allowed me to collect a pretty good range of different lipstick shades. So today I'm going to show you how some of these colors actually show up on my lips, and I'll share some pointers on how I would go about choosing the right lipstick shades as a muted olive. So these palettes I got from MAC, and they're blank palettes, so you can put whichever colors you want into it. And what I do is whenever I get a new lipstick, I twist the bullet all the way out, I cut off the top section, scoop out all the lipstick from inside the bullet, and then I transfer it into a blank slot in the palette. And then I'll take the top section that I cut off earlier and pop it back into the bullet, and now I can keep the bullet for my personal use, and I'll save the palettes for when I'm using it on clients for sanitary reasons. Even if you're not a makeup artist though, if you just want to keep things organized and see all the colors you own in one view, this is a really good tool for that. And you can still save the bullets for carrying them in your purse whenever you're on the go. I think the palette's around $30 Canadian, so that's just a little tip for keeping all of your lipstick colors organized. Alright, so I'm gonna show you how I would go about choosing 3 different lipstick shades. An mlbb shade, and for those of you that don't know what mlbb stands for, it's an abbreviation for My Lips But Better. So they're your typical soft pink or mauve types of colors, and they're generally really good for daily use. And then I'll also show you how to choose a bold lip color, so like a red or a burgundy. And last but not least, a nude lip. I am already wearing makeup, so once I start trying on the shades, you'll be able to see the end result or the finished product for the entire face. And since my makeup is pretty natural, let's start with the My Lips But Better shades. If we look at all of the colors in the palette, the colors that I would consider as mlbb would be probably these 2 at the top and these 2 in the middle. And then from the other palette, these 3 in the second row, and potentially this very cool sort of magenta-ish pink and this warm coral in the third row. By the way, if you're looking for specific brand and color names for the shades that I'll be using today, I might not be able to share all of them with you because I don't know what they are. I wrote them all down on a piece of paper when I first put these palettes together, and then I lost that piece of paper. So I can remember some of these shades, but not all of them. But for the purpose of this video and exercise, I think not knowing the brands and color names is actually kind of good, because then we can really focus on training the eye to see the colors themselves. So here are all the colors that I would categorize as mlbb next to one another, and I've arranged them from lightest to darkest. And I don't know if you remember, but in my initial olive skin tone video, I talked about when I'm choosing a blush or a lipstick color, I always like going for a shade that looks a little bit darker than what I think I need. And looking at all the shades next to one another, immediately I know that some of these shades are going to be just too light for me. So I'll just quickly show you what one of these light colors look like on me. See how this is giving me a very sickly vibe? So this is also because my dominant traits when it comes to my best colors are deep and soft. And this shade is quite light, so there's not enough depth, and it's also not soft. So color contains a lot of white, but it doesn't have enough gray to really give the color that softness I need. And it is a little bit too cool for me as well. My skin tone is pretty close to neutral. In the past, I've talked about how a neutral foundation is a much better match for me than a warm or a cool foundation. And that same theory applies to me in choosing lipstick colors. So I always like to stay sort of neutral cool or neutral warm, and this pink just happens to be a little too cool for my skin. So this is actually probably one of the worst colors for me. But based on what I've just talked about regarding temperature, looking at the colors again, I already know that some of these pinks are probably too cool for me, and this coral is likely too warm for me. Let me show you what the warm coral looks like on me. So you see how this is now leaning a little too warm? It's actually up as warm as I thought it would, but it is still warmer than what I would normally like to see. Now this color is not as light as the first color I tried on, so there is a little bit more depth, but it's also a little too bright. Like I said, I need that level of softness in the color, so when there's not enough softness, the color just looks like it's sitting on top of me. And if I'm going for a slightly bolder pop of color, this might work, but again, it's a little too warm, and I'm looking for that My Lips But Better look, so I really want to look for a color that truly blends in with my skin tone. So that leaves me with these colors, and my first instinct would be to choose this pink, because when we're just looking at the colors, this looks like the most similar to my actual lips. But remember what I said about always choosing a shade darker than what I think I need? So I'll show you the difference between what the color I think I need looks like versus a shade darker. So here's the color that I thought would work well just based on looking at the color. And you see how the color is still a little bit light and it still sort of sits on top of me. Now, if we were to go with a darker shade, this. Now this, you can see how the color just blends in a lot more with my skin tone. Not that the lighter shade looks terrible, but like I said, when it comes to MLBB, I'm looking for something that really blends in with my skin and looks more natural. So in that sense, I think the darker shade just comes across as more harmonious. My lips are starting to hurt. Alright, now let's go over some bold colors. I think a lot of people are really confused about how to pick the right shade of red lips, so let's focus on red. And I think I've got around 6 shades of reds. So again, I'll lay them out next to each other. Now, one thing we want to be mindful of when we're choosing a red lipstick, or really with any shade, is the texture. But with more pigmented colors like red, the texture plays a bigger role in how opaque the color appears on the lips, a lot more so than with softer shades. This bright red, for example, it has this shiny, almost a balm-like texture. And when we put the shade on the lips, you see how it doesn't apply nearly as opaque as how the color appears to the eye. This almost looks like a pink, actually. And the thing is, this kind of texture is not really buildable. I mean, it kind of is, but you'll never get that same level of intensity as a more matte texture. Let me show you a comparison of similar shades with very different textures. Oh my gosh, my lips are starting to feel numb. Now this second shade looks pretty similar to the first one in terms of color, but texture-wise, this one is a lot more matte. And you can see how the second color just has a bit more intensity to it, and the color just pops more. Now, neither of these colors are my best reds because they are a little too bright for me, and you can see the color again just sits on top of me instead of being blended in. And if that's the look you're going for and you're really looking for that intense pop of color, then why not? But oftentimes what I find with red lips is that the color is already quite pigmented and strong, so it draws a lot of attention already. And I think this is where a lot of us feel self-conscious about wearing red lips because it draws a lot of attention, so that extra pop might not always be necessary. So I usually like wearing something a little bit darker and slightly softer than a bright true red like this, just to bring down the intensity a little bit. And these last two colors you see here are closer to a brick red, which is what I would normally opt for. So let me show you what this slightly darker and softer color looks like on me. So you see how this color just seems a little bit more blended and natural as opposed to the previous color that really popped? Temperature-wise, this color is a little less cool than the previous reds, but it's really the depth and the slight softness that makes the bigger difference. So again, going a shade or two darker has always done the trick for me in choosing shades that end up looking more harmonious with my overall complexion. And also, if you feel really self-conscious about wearing a red lip, what I like doing sometimes in creating a more natural look is only wearing the red in the inner parts of the lips and then wearing a softer color along the outer edges just to blend everything. I created a short on this method a while ago, so I'll link it up here if you haven't watched it. Some comments did say this is not a red lip, but if you feel like a full-on red lip look is just too much, try this method out and see how you like it. Alright, last but not least, we're gonna move on to nude lips. When it comes to nude lips, I still like there to be a little bit of pigment, because if I choose something that's really beige and similar to my skin tone, let me show you what I mean. I look kind of dead. This is actually a shade that I specifically use as sort of a concealer just to blur the natural lip line. I've mentioned before that olive skin can easily look very sallow because we're not showing very much red pigments in our skin already. So if you pick a nude color that's too beige or doesn't have enough pigment, it can end up making you look really sickly. And I've got quite a few nude shades here, so I've laid them out next to each other again. But I know based on my complexion and my dominant traits, certain colors just won't work because they're too light. I mean, obviously you don't want to pick a color that's lighter than your natural skin tone. And this was the shade I just tried that made me look like I don't have any blood flowing through me. So that leaves me with these shades. And they are somewhat similar in that they're all quite soft and neutral in temperature. And again, my first instinct would be to choose something like these two shades that I think looks dark enough. But I'm following the rule that a shade or two darker is always better. So let me show you the difference again. So this is the color that I think I need. It's one of the two colors that I initially said would be dark enough. And this is not bad, I think, but with this sort of natural-ish eye makeup I've got going on today, I think my face still looks pretty lifeless. So if we try another darker shade, and this was the darkest nude that I pulled from the palette. I do have darker brown colors for clients with deeper skin tones, but for me, I know those colors are not gonna appear nude on me, so I didn't even bother pulling those out from the palette. So this is the darkest one I pulled, and again, you can see how the color just looks more stable. Like it's not floating or sitting on top of me. I think this color specifically looks like a very natural nude, almost an in-between color between a true nude and an MLBB. So I think this is the color that I would probably end up picking because I don't really wear heavy eye makeup that goes with paler, more true nude colors, and I think this color gives me that versatility to go either heavier or a bit more natural with the rest of my makeup. So depending on what your go-to makeup routine is and how dark or heavy you want to go with your eye makeup, there is a bit of wiggle room in how true of a nude color you want to pick. And if you're going into a Sephora or any other makeup stores to try on different shades of nude lips, make sure you're wearing your usual eye makeup or the eye makeup that you think you'll want to pair with a nude lip. Make sure to wear that so you can actually see the end result of the entire finished look. Another tip I have for you in trying different lipstick shades is, as you've seen with me putting on a color, removing it, then repeating the process over and over, your lips and the skin around your lips might start getting a little sensitive and turn red. So before you try on a new color, make sure to use some concealer along your lip line to hide that redness, because if you don't, the color might just look messy and a little off, regardless of whether it's the right shade for you or not. And especially if you naturally have a double lip line or a bit of a blurry lip line like me, using a bit of concealer along the lip line can really help with making the color look a bit cleaner, especially with nude colors. One more tip I have is don't be afraid to mix colors. If you find that a color is lacking something, try layering on another color and see if you like the result of that. I've actually made it a conscious goal to stop buying more lipstick shades because I can actually create a lot of different colors by mixing and matching what I already have. And now I've gotten into the habit of wearing multiple colors at a time, and the fun part of that is the color can turn out slightly different each time, so you get to really fine-tune the color to the exact shade that you want that's not sold anywhere. The only downside is sometimes I get questions about which lipstick I'm wearing, and I'm like, well, it's sort of complicated. Anyways, I hope you found the video and the tips helpful today, and if you have any of your own tricks in choosing the right shade of makeup, I'd love to hear them, so share them in the comments below. I'll see you in my next video, and until then, stay unique and stay gorgeous.